Hello, School Transportation Nation. It's Tony Corpin here. We're excited to have you on the podcast. It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, and by School Radio, your source for reliable radio communications. In just a minute, Ryan Gray, our editorial extraordinaire, is going to be talking with Gaurav Sharda, the Chief Technology Officer at Beacon Mobility. And it's going to be really interesting. So we'll be talking about that, getting into the tech side of things. So looking forward to it. Ryan, I'm glad you're here. And we've got some great headlines here coming up, right?
Absolutely. Always great to be here with the nation.
Awesome. Well, here's a quick message. Hey guys, what do software, hardware, and safety have in common? One word: TransFinder. At the STN Expo in Reno, TransFinder won 3 Innovation Choice Awards, voted on by STN Expo attendees for best software, best hardware, best safety technology. TransFinder's Route Finder plus routing solution and apps, Stop Finder and Wayfinder, are well known in the industry. Not everyone realizes TransFinder provides hardware like card readers, tablets, and mounts. And as for safety, Patrol Finder for schools is TransFinder's latest solution designed to make buses and campuses safer. TransFinder's president and CEO, Antonio Civitella, said the recognition means so much because it's voted on by STN Expo attendees. Civitella said, "We know a lot is riding on TransFinder because a lot is riding on those yellow buses that travel through our communities. TransFinder must continue to innovate as more is being expected of transportation departments from district leadership as well as parents." Learn more at transfinder.com. That's transfinder.com. All right, we're back. Ryan, let's talk EPA Clean School Bus Program. We got an email. Sounds like some deposits are being made on existing commitments. So wanted to kind of get your feel on that. What's happening out there in the nation?
All right, Tony. Well, there's good news and no news. So we've had a lot of no news lately when it comes to the Clean School Bus Program from the EPA. We did get a little bit of news, and it was good. Last week, they announced that after that prolonged executive order review, the Trump administration, President Donald Trump signed Unleashing American Energy back when shortly after he took office, and that put on hiatus several programs, one of which was Clean School Bus Program. And EPA said last week that review has concluded their assessment, and the 2023 Clean School Bus Rebate Funds, those funds are now accessible. I know that we had heard the previous week, so 2 weeks ago, a lot of selectees, which they're now being called, they used to be called grantees. Now I see the term selectees being used by EPA. They were notified. So I know that we heard from a couple of school bus operators that they had started getting several $1 million worth of rebates for their electric school bus purchases. Now, in terms of the no news, we still have not heard from EPA what's going on with the rebates that closed. That application closed in January of this year. We were supposed to have awards being revealed this month, April, beginning of May. We have not heard anything. And again, when I talk to the electric school bus advocates out there, the WRIs of the world, the CalStarts, they don't know anything more than I know. So, when things are happening, they'll happen. I guess that's the way to put it, if they happen. It seems to be not very much confidence that folks have that Clean School Bus Program will be moving forward. But again, time will tell. Again, if you are a selectee, then you'll know. You'll probably know before the rest of us do. So that was certainly the case again with this 2023 Clean School Bus Rebate. The EPA did respond to me last week, just to let me send some questions. The deadline of Friday came and went. So go into the podcast press with what I have so far, but please feel free to stay tuned to stnonline.com. Hopefully this week, some point, we'll have a new article that provides as much information as we can get it. So it was interesting. There were a couple of new Clean School Bus Program resources that were released by EPA last week. Questions to ask your electric school bus dealer and the Clean School Bus Technical Assistance webpage. So as you can probably assume, a lot of technical assistance type questions on charging, electric utility connections, bus performance, operational considerations, and also too, not just looking at electric, but giving a basics on electric, propane, and compressed natural gas. Again, for our industry, we're really looking at electric and propane. Not much, if any, compressed natural gas new from the manufacturers. There is none. So going forward, it will be electric and propane, although propane is limited as well. Some of the resources that EPA released on their website, there's a PDF where you can again ask your dealer questions, and I'm sure a lot of you already are having these types of dialogues with your dealers. But just in case, some of the topics that they cover are bus range. Of course, that's always been a very big question in terms of electric school buses, maintenance, warranties, and service options. Very important, especially with Lion Electric being auctioned off, which heard last month that process was delayed by at least a week in terms of the bids being submitted end of March. So that is ongoing as well. But more questions, EPA mentions in this new document: purchasing and financing, infrastructure, batteries, bus heating, training and technology, and software. So you guys can check that out over on the EPA Clean School Bus Program website. And again, we'll have the latest news on this development at stnonline.com.
Hey, Ryan, that's really great info. I'm sure all the school transportation professionals out there are going to be interested in finding more out about the program as more details become available. But I know we're going to be at ACT Expo, and we're in the thick of it right now. We're walking the floor. We're meeting with different partners, looking at the latest technologies. I know we have an interview with John Kenning, the president and CEO at First Student, talking about some of their new technology. Thomas Built Buses is there. Bluebird is there. International Motors is there. Ride is there. We've got so many partners we're meeting up with, existing partners, new partners. Really exciting time here at ACT Expo, huh, Ryan?
Absolutely. I think that, with the release this week here at ACT Expo of the 6th annual State of Sustainable Fleets report and survey that TRC, formerly Neandros, Gladstein and Associates, which run ACT Expo, as I mentioned, 6th annual report, and they really do a great job of covering the heavy duty and medium duty commercial trucking and bus industry. What's the latest that fleets are dealing with? What are they doing? What are they not doing? As it's not a surprise when you're talking about battery electric school buses, there has been an increase in that, according to the report. So this study looks at about 200 commercial fleets across the nation, and of course, school bus is part of that. But with battery electric school buses, this report now looking at 2024, 47% increase, which was interesting to me because it's a big number. But when you look compared to commercial cargo vans and pickup trucks, 95 to 97% increase. So, I mean, it's like, 100-fold, 100% increase for those. Not as big with battery electric school buses. Of course, one of the big stories around battery electric school buses has been how perfect they are for implementation and deployment. And certainly you see those numbers, but it's still only about 3% of the total medium and heavy duty battery electric registrations. And as TRC noted in the report, quote, due in no small part to federal grant funding, unquote. A big story around the report this week, and actually last week when Taylor Ekbatani and I sat through a press briefing on that before the release, was the unprecedented times that we're in right now, especially when it comes to funding. A lot's been said about the tariffs, of course. A lot has been said, and a lot is still unknown about the state of regulation. So we're staring down here EPA Phase 3 GHG emissions rule that's going to be going into effect supposedly in 2027. As of right now, EPA has that under review. So a little bit similar to what we've seen with Clean School Bus program, things have ground to a halt a bit. And anytime there's that uncertainty, as we're seeing in the larger markets, in the stock markets, with regard to President Trump's tariffs, the markets react squeamishly to uncertainty. So there's a lot of folks that are still trying to make decisions going forward. I think from a standpoint of what we see this week at ACT Expo with the manufacturers, and I've mentioned this before, they've already invested so much money in specifically battery electric school buses and battery electric trucks and whatnot from the larger manufacturers and the global parents and whatnot. But also, too, in terms of what we're seeing with meeting those 27 regulations, those emission regulations. We know, again, that Cummins announced a couple weeks ago that their 27 compliant diesel engine under their helm or fuel agnostic platform is slated for release in 27. The octane is coming a year before that. So we know that, a lot of these technologies, they're moving forward. It's not going to change. But what is going to change, as we've also been discussing, is where these vehicles and these engines are going to go into, meaning the states. And with the regulations on hold, and a lot of what we've seen with advanced clean fleets from California Air Resources Board, where they've walked away from a lot of those aforementioned waivers, those federal waivers that they needed to fully implement that. So there's a lot of states that were set to follow that. And what do they do now? So again, a lot of the conversation we're having with folks is a little bit of recalibration in terms of where diesel school buses are going to go into. And again, something we talked about a lot last summer at STN Expo West in Reno, Nevada, was there a world where diesel would be coming back? And certainly we do see some of that. We've been talking about that, Tony. So, with that said, still a lot of innovations out there, a lot of still new companies coming up that we hadn't heard of before that are going to be at ACT Expo. So still a plethora of options available to districts, but really when it comes down to funding, that's really what everyone's looking at with a fine-tooth comb right now, is where is that funding going to come from? Certainly from a federal level, there's still a lot of uncertainties regarding the Inflation Reduction Act and the 45Z incentive through the IRS for those fueling properties. It really that was designed to, along with some other things, take over for the alt fuel tax incentive that expired at the end of 2024. A lot of that's still in limbo. So again, a lot of the feeling that I'm getting from some of the OEMs that I'm listening to on stage or whatnot is that there's still a lot of uncertainty, but they're moving forward. They're doing the best they can do. As we are in the end of April, beginning of May, folks, especially at the school district level and even contractors, Tony, they're well on their road toward setting their budgets, their budget requests, at least for the upcoming school year, if they haven't already done so already. So it just makes that planning that much more difficult. But certainly, there's plenty of great technology out here at ACT Expo in Anaheim, California. And be sure to head over to stnonline.com and catch some more of our coverage. I know we're talking to a lot of folks on the floor. We're doing video and audio interviews, writing up articles. There's a school bus panel as we're talking here, as the podcast comes out, that's going to be held. So a lot of good information to update the industry on.
Yeah, Ryan, that's great info. I know I looked in the report and they had a lot to say about renewable diesel. You want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so renewable diesel is actually on goal to surpass the minimum requirements for volume production this year. So that's a big boon. And, but ultimately still that comes down to funding. And we're really seeing the availability or the incentives for renewable diesel, a drop in fuel, not biodiesel. So that's a different, biodiesel is a blend. derived from a lot of the same sources: organic material, waste oils, livestock feed product, and the sort. But there's a different chemistry involved. And we've written a lot about this over the years. It's a really great renewable non-fossil fuel alternative is renewable diesel, or RD. And, but really we see it in California, very much so. I mean, I think I was reading in the report that 70% of the fleets, and again, they're looking at more than just school buses, from the State of Sustainable Fleet report, 70% in California alone are using RD. And if they're not using RD, that means they're probably not using diesel, because that's really CARB has okayed that, and they approve that. So if they're not using RD, they're probably using natural gas or battery electric. So, in those states, also Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, those are what are called the low carbon fuel standard states. That's really, really the incentives have been driven toward those states to have RD. So a lot of the talk is, how can we make that more readily available elsewhere? And there was some discussion. There's still other states that are kind of on the hook with that, that are interested, but we haven't seen any movement since New Mexico passed their law last year. And I understand that later this year or next year is when they're going to actually fully implement LCFS, and we'll see more RD down there, our friends in New Mexico.
Yeah, I know from an exploratory fuel, hydrogen was mentioned. I know in school bus that seems like unrealistic, but in some of the other industries, that's kind of an emerging fuel source, right?
Yeah, hydrogen. And with hydrogen, a lot of the discussion has been, you think the infrastructure for charging electric school buses is expensive. You can look at especially hydrogen fuel cell, that's more expensive. So I think that that's really based upon the feedback I've gotten to folks that I've talked to over the last several years, that hydrogen is not likely to be a fuel, at least in the short term, for school buses. I think that we're looking at an increase in battery electric. Again, because of the federal funding dearth that we're seeing, a lot more of the impetus is going to states. We've written about that in the magazine recently. That's been a lot of the chatter that's continuing here at ACT Expo. Certainly, we do have some propane, that's again limited to the Bluebird product for now anyways. And it was interesting in that State of Sustainable Fleets report, I noticed when I first got the advanced copy that there were some passing mentions to propane at the very top, but there was no section on propane, a lot on natural gas actually. And for trucking natural gas, that's certainly a trend upward. Not so much for school buses, as we know, really, ever since Bluebird exited CNG, actually, ceased after last year, and they had sold off their entire inventory actually in 2023. So there is no CNG available in school bus. So for school bus, we're looking at battery electric. Again, that's a drop in the bucket when you're looking at 475,000 school buses, 1%, or 0.5% maybe of what we need out there. And then, a lot of diesel, renewable diesel, obviously what we were just discussing, an option. I think, again, those incentives need to be more widely available nationwide. And I think and I've been saying this for a while, I think that's an opportunity missed, frankly, from my perspective, from a federal level. And I know that there's some other aspects to renewable diesel, because, and it comes back to pricing. The reason why those LCFS incentives are so important is because renewable diesel still sells at a premium to regular diesel, but those LCFs bring it to parity. But I think the increase in production ahead of schedule, that could help bring down prices going forward. Again, I think we need several years of more production of RD, but of course, gasoline or octane is going to be prevalent in the industry. So I think that those are going to be the predominant fuels going forward. Again, until or unless we see something else move in the near future when it comes to propane.
All right, well, let's get to your interview, Ryan, right after these messages. Hey, Safety is a number one priority for everyone in school transportation, and even more so when needing to communicate in a school bus setting. School radios, push to talk over cellular or POC radios, are the safety enhancement you need to provide clear communication across all aspects of your fleet. Schools, SROs, that's school resource officers, and beyond. School radio helps take safety and connectivity a step further by offering interoperability solutions that bridge conventional two-way radios with POC systems, creating a unified network that boosts effectiveness and safety. This integrated strategy guarantees smooth communication in both emergency situations and daily activities. To learn more about how school radio can improve safety in your communication methods, visit school-radio.com. That's school-radio.com.
All right, Nation, we're back. Want to welcome to the podcast stage Gaurav Sharda, this Chief Technology Officer for Beacon Mobility, school bus vehicle contractor, one of the largest in the nation. Gaurav, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ryan, firstly, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here and honored to be here with you.
Well, likewise, I think we're more honored to be here with you, but appreciate it. Being the chief technology officer, we were chatting a little bit before we started recording. There's so much intersection right now. We had an article recently in School Transportation News magazine about the relationship, the increasing relationship between IT and student transporters. We'll get into that a little bit, but I always love to start off our conversations by the guests sharing a little bit about themselves with our audience. So please jump in, tell our nation who Gaurav Sharda is. What's your background?
Absolutely, Ryan. This is Gaurav Sharda. I lead the technology area for Beacon Mobility right now. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Beacon. And a little bit about the organization. So Beacon Mobility is a high-needs transportation provider. We provide tailored transportation solutions for a variety of business lines. And end of the day, we do all the transportation basically for the agencies where the rider experience matters. We are not transporting cargoes, we are transporting people with special needs and where the rider experience matters a lot. So we work with a lot of school bus industries, yellow, special needs side. We do a lot of work with paratransit, non-emergency medical, and shuttles and charters. Have about 18,000 plus employees, 20,000 plus vehicles, and operating in about 26 states so far. Have been with Beacon Mobility for a little over 3.5 years now. And before that, I used to do a lot of work in the technology space, and HR, finance, technology was my go-to area. I'm originally from India. I came to the US in 2009, and it looked back on technology, like always had the mind for like a curious mind, if you will. Have always loved tinkering with different tools and splitting them out, like putting them together. Problem solving on the math side has always been exciting to me. It's not the same for everybody, but it's always an area which has attracted or drawn me towards that. So have loved doing the problem solving bit. And I came to the US. I did consulting for about 4 years. Worked with clients like Microsoft, Comcast, and St. Jude Medical, which is now with Abbott, and did a lot of work on the HR and finance technology areas. Then I moved into General Mills, did a lot of work in the HR transformation space. It was a global transformation. Got to work with a lot of people across the entire world and truly understand, right? Like, end of the day, people use technology to solve certain problems. They're not using technology just for the sake of it, and understood the meaning of change management in that journey. Like, when you look at a hiring process is not just a hiring process. It varies when you're talking about that in the US versus Australia versus some other countries. So truly understood the nuance of change management and pulling people in as a part of the journey at General Mills. And then I moved on to Lifetime, where I led the sales, marketing, HR, and finance technologies for about 4 years. We went from private to being public, and I joined Beacon Mobility about 3.5 years ago. So I've always been fascinated when technology and people and that combination comes together and creates that special sauce which creates an impact in the society. That is what keeps me going and keeps me motivated to get out of bed each day.
That's what struck me when I was looking at your experience, the HR element, because I can't recall meeting too many CTOs who have that HR. And obviously, you're working on the technology side of that, but like you said, that intersection of people, and you are now in a very people business, obviously, and you have been. But when you're talking about transporting students, and then also working with their parents, that has to go a very long way, and you have that experience to draw from.
That is true, Ryan. Right? When you think about it, technology is always there, right? From a tech perspective, there are things you have to keep in mind. It has to work. It has to be reliable. It has to be scalable, and all those good things, right? Which an organization looks for from a tech perspective. But end of the day, we are trying to solve a problem for our people, and it's more important in the transportation space. People with special needs is the community we are transporting on a daily basis. So think about this, right? A vehicle is running late, and like the impact it has on the parent if they're not aware, like, hey, why is my child not here right now at the at my house, or like at the pickup time when the vehicle is running late and they're not aware. The impact it creates, it just feels that it's what's the big deal if it's a few minutes late on the either side of it. But the impact it creates on the parent, and utilizing technologies to make them aware of where the vehicle is at any point in time. It's a simple example, but it creates a big difference in that person's life. It's the peace of mind they get where they are certain where my child is at all points in time, and why the vehicle is late, what's going on. It's a simple example, but you always have to, and it's been a learning journey for me. You always have to keep in mind, you have to think from an end user perspective. What are we trying to accomplish through the use of technology for that end user? It's going to mean different things for different personas. And in the transportation industry, more so than other industries, like what does a dispatcher need versus what does a parent need versus what do you need as leaders in terms of overall visibility, and what does our school district need to see, have to keep in mind technology has to solve a problem for a specific persona at specific points in the journey of their entire experience.
And one of those people, school bus drivers, the industry, we've talked a lot about it, and the term shortage, I feel there's been a lot of pushback lately from a lot of folks within the industry. It's saying it's not a shortage, it's a people issue, it's a cultural issue. So when we're looking at technology, we're looking at human resources, human capital. What are some of the things that you see as trends in the industry right now, and then perhaps going forward, that's addressing the driver or the aid? You mentioned earlier, transporting students with disabilities. We're seeing more and more aids again on school buses, not necessarily just tied to the IEP. What are some of those trends that are influencing and could influence? Maybe we're not seeing them yet, but you see them emerging.
Yeah. So a few things come to mind, Ryan, on this topic. So you think about, I've been learning the industry, right? Like I'm still pretty new to the industry, 3.5 years in, still consider myself a newbie. But when you look a few years back, the technologies in the space were primarily focused on keeping the systems up and running. Whether it's student databases, or you're doing routing, which is like pretty manual, using where you have to pick up, where you have to drop off, and you may use like some map features, but it was restricted to that particular piece. And now, as you mentioned, right, like we are being asked to solve much bigger challenges, bigger issues which we are facing with the national driver shortages, increasing the safety expectations which are there, the rising expectations now the parents have, right, around transparency of the information. You think about it, in this day and age, we can track a pizza from the point where it goes into the oven all the way it comes to your house. And how do we modernize the school bus industry where the parents can get the same peace of mind for their most precious people, which are their kids or their loved ones. And on the driver's side, retaining the drivers and creating the best experience for them becomes like of paramount importance. So you think about the traditional challenges drivers have faced, the communications which are happening in the vehicles. If I have an issue on the bus as a driver, I have to communicate to my dispatcher. I'm using the legacy radios, which may or may not work at times. You get so much noise in the dispatch location where they might not even be able to decipher like who is saying what and what happens. And now we are seeing the trend of moving towards like push to talk technology, where the digital radios can provide a seamless communication experience between the drivers and the dispatcher. And think about from a driver perspective the peace of mind it provides to them. They know that if there is an issue which is going to happen, then they have an easy way to reach out to the dispatchers at any point in time. So that is critical. And how do we provide the best experiences for them? More transparency from a driver standpoint as well. What is my route going to look like? If there is a spare driver who is coming in because there is a call out, then the driver does not have to remember the directions to go to a point A, point B, point C. They can use turn by turn directions on the map, and the peace of mind it provides to a driver, and they're not uneasy in terms of what roads and alleys they're going to take as a part of driving. So we have to think from an employee experience perspective, how we are thinking about using the technology. And AI is coming in, how do we use artificial intelligence to free up time for our people, eliminate all the manual work, the mundane tasks, the repetitive work which people are doing, and free that time up for more human to human interaction. Because this is what is going to keep the drivers engaged and stay with us longer. And we have to think about providing the best experiences for all of our stakeholders, including the drivers at every point in time. So utilizing the tech to free up the time is where I see the biggest movements happening as we move forward.
So you hit on it, AI, and I think it's important. I always try to make sure that we mention this in our articles or when we're talking about it. What we're seeing right now, it's not machine learning, it's AI enhanced software. So it's the software that is being coded or being written in a way to begin to automate some of this. And I think begin to automate. We're not at that point yet, but it's coming very fast.
It is. It is. And I think what happens is, Ryan, like the way I look at it is, and it's a journey, right? You think about like, what does AI mean? It used to be one of those black magic kind of things, right? Like, hey, what is AI? What does it mean for me? Like, the privacy aspect, is it going to see everything what I'm doing? Is that is it a big brother just watching you all the time? And it's just like the fear of the unknown. I think the big part of it is not trying to go to find a state of perfection. Like, what does it mean for you in small chunks, and trying to pull your people in the journey? And I'll give you a few examples of that. So you think about drivers, like from a driver experience standpoint, what are some of the common questions they may have on a day-to-day basis? They may want to see what does my pay slip look like? How much vacation balance do I have available? What is my HR policy saying in terms of the vacation or sick or some of the safety related items or some other things? What is my route going to look like? So there's some common questions which our drivers have, and the same thing, it cascades across the entire organization. So you think about how it works today. We have to go into different systems, right? I may have to, as a driver, I may have to go into my HR system to find certain piece of information. Then I'm going into an operation system to find certain piece of information. I'm going to a time tracking system to punch in and punch out. So the way we are thinking about it is, what are the common actions and common set of questions which our frontline employees may have? And can we use virtual assistant or conversational chatbots, as people call it? Can we use those things and meet people where they need to be met through different channels, right? Because not everybody may use an app on the phone. They could use texting as a channel. They could use email as a channel. They could use a chatbot app as a channel. So can we enable all the different channels and provide a simple user experience for our frontline employees where they can ask a question, hey, give me my pay stub, show me what my vacation balance looks like. And can we provide that personalized, secure information at just in time when the driver or any other employee needs it? So I think like that's one of the areas we are thinking about AI in terms of improving our employee experience, reducing the frustration. And there used to be days, Ryan, in the past where if I had to find my pay stub, I had to, if I'm at a park out location, I'm driving an hour just to go to the location to get my pay stub, print it out, and then go back. Now think about it, right? Like if I have a simple, easy to use, multi-channel, like a friend of mine who I can ask the question and get that answer. People want that self-service is what we are finding in the journey we have been on in the last year and some. So it's all about bringing people in the journey and trying to find the solutions to problems which are going to be relevant for the people. So like that's been the learning on our side. And and the other flip side of this is the robotic process automation category, right? There are so many mundane tasks, like which happen at the dispatch location, from a safety perspective where you're pushing paper, and from the finance side, there are invoices which, like, our accounts payable team is keying in. So can we find the tasks which are like, more paper pushing, or you're keying information from a sheet of paper into a system? There are technologies with, like, optical character recognition and other things which can automate some of those activities. So how do we start freeing up the time from a dispatch standpoint, and like, some of the other support functions, so we can truly spend time in human to human interaction? So that's how we are thinking about it at the moment. Start small, take action, get wins, bring people in on the journey, and do a rinse and repeat.
I hear a lot of addressing people's needs and wants to be able to do their jobs better, more efficiently, free up time. When we were preparing for this interview, it was interesting to me because I had just watched a 60 Minutes interview with Demis Hassabis, who is the co-founder of Google DeepMind, their huge AI engine. And he talked a lot about people and the human mind. I think he studied neuroscience because he wanted to understand how does the brain work? Because if I'm going to develop AI, we need to understand so that AI will understand our brains and vice versa. And I drew a lot of corollaries to that with preparing for your conversation. So, I know one of the big things with AI that with you is empathy. And again, it comes back to solving problems and understanding what people's needs and wants are. How does empathy play that role? Because I think you see it really being foundational to the expanse of AI.
I totally agree with that, Ryan. Right? I mean, technology is there, but end of the day, empathy is, like, from my perspective, empathy is not just a nice to have; it is a core principle. When we are designing AI solutions or any other technology solutions for something like student transportation, we are dealing with people's kids, right? You're not dealing with cargo; you're dealing with people's kids. So we cannot just think about using any technology or AI in terms of optimizing things for efficiencies and, like, just labor savings, hour savings, or XYZ. You are thinking about optimizing for trust. Trust becomes very critical. So empathy for me means thinking about how our solution, it feels from a driver's perspective when a driver is using it at 6 a.m., or the parent who is anxiously waiting for a bus to arrive. And if our technology is not understanding these people's needs, it's not solving the right problem. So you have to always keep empathy top of mind when you're trying to design solutions and think from an end user perspective. It's more critical than ever. And in this day and age, right, where trust is very hard to come by. And once you lose trust in, like, certain aspect, it's very hard to regain that. So with, like, AI and the privacy thing, the security thing, the governance, other things, and the skepticism which people just have in general, it makes the empathy component even more critical. And you have to bring people in on the journey, make sure they're in with you lockstep, not when the solutions are designed, but all the way from like, hey, what problems are we trying to solve for you? And then we use the technology to solve it for them and bring them in on the journey from the very beginning. And that's how I think, we cannot take it for granted. So that's my perspective on empathy. It's more critical than ever.
Back to what my point about AI enhanced. We see so many products and solutions now in the marketplace available for student transportation as well as everything else in our life. I would imagine that you being the CTO for this, large school bus and, student transportation really contractor, because there's more vehicles than simply school buses you guys are working with. But what are your thoughts for the school districts out there, especially who maybe are a lot smaller and they're just trying to wrap their heads around what this AI thing is? And they're being bombarded left and right by all of these sales pitches. Oh, well, we have AI this and AI that. Are there some fundamental questions, again, harkening back to having empathy as your core principle or core value, that they need to be asking of their providers, their vendors, when they're being approached to adopt some of these AI solutions?
It's a good question, Ryan. Just thinking, what are some of the few things which I think about and which the school districts can think about as they think about AI landscape. So the first thing, which is it's easier said than done, is not get sucked in by a new shiny object. Focus on what problems you're trying to find a solve for, because end of the day, like, you're going to use tools, whether it's AI or any other set of technology, is going to be used to solving a certain problem which you're trying to overcome, or an experience you're trying to make better for any of the stakeholders you're serving. So like, keep that as a starting point and don't buy tech just for the sake of buying tech. Now I'll give you an example, right? So if a school district is thinking that, hey, safety is of paramount importance and they're running their own school buses, you want to make sure that there's camera systems in the vehicle, and it's able to improve the driver's driving behaviors in the moment. If you're speeding, or if you're you didn't do a full stop and you did a rolling stop, just audible alerts. There are solutions out there which provide audible alerts, and it improves the safety of the rider experience, of the driver, of everybody involved through that particular piece. Then that is an area you should try to go and explore, because it solves a legit problem and it improves the safety and experience for everybody involved in the journey. So push to talk was another example. Like, you think about technology as a whole and think about the problems you're trying to find a solve for. The second thing, what I would encourage people to do is, when you have determined what problem you want to find a solve for, you always want to look at a few options which are out there, evaluate them, and do a proof of concept. Don't jump in to say that this is the solution I'm going to utilize right off the bat. Think about doing a small scale proof of concept, and validate what the vendor is saying, that if they're going to do a certain thing, you validate with a proof of concept, and you'll find good partners who are willing to do that. So establish that piece, establish the criteria for success, do it in a very small scale, validate the proof of concept, and then you choose and do it with a couple of providers, and then find the right one you want to partner with. And think about the change management as a part of the journey. Like, when you are in the execution mode, think about change management as a part of the journey, and how are you going to keep everybody involved, because with this tech, it means that there is a certain process component which will change, and a certain people component which will change. So if it's paper pushing activity and you're looking to automate that through the use of robotic process automation tools, then it means that there will be an somebody getting impacted who is doing the manual work and doing the paper pushing activities. Now, can you redeploy that to enhance the human to human interaction and the people experiences? So you have to be, it's all about people, process, and tools. And tools, if you're utilizing to change or improve a certain set of process, it means there is some impact on the people side as well. So these are some of the things, Ryan, which comes into mind as you try to think about venturing. into this new tech era.
And something that strikes me too is the, safety is what drives this industry. That's paramount, always comes down to safety. And I'm hearing you discuss perhaps avoiding an over reliance on technology. You don't want to cut corners, and it comes back to the people part of it, right? And you touched on it with AI enabled coaching, basically what you were talking about earlier with coaching drivers and using AI and cameras to not only report like what they're doing, maybe even real time, but to allow them to learn from it. But the training aspect,
Yeah.
right? It comes down to training, and we're seeing AI not only in terms of behind the wheel, but being able to and again AI enhanced, be able to help with training. So I think it always comes back to training, right? And I would imagine with the number of drivers you have at your various companies across North America, training is probably one of, if not the leading operation you guys have to ensure every day, in addition to getting the kids to and from.
I totally agree, Ryan. I mean, training is a very critical component. It's about, and it goes two ways, right? Like we have our chief safety officer, Kevin Kilner, and the focus on training and setting a great curriculum in terms of what great looks like. So, we partner with a lot of providers who are giving us the great content in terms of educating people in terms of what good safety, good training, like what are the best in class things you have to keep in mind when you're going on the road. We do a lot of hands-on training components as well, that is baked in. And as a part of the training cycle, end of the day, it's just making sure that people know what good looks like, what the expectations are, like that clarity is set up front, and we're setting people up for success. Because some of the drivers, it may be the first time in this industry, they may have a CDL license, but they may be doing this for first time in the school bus industry, and just educating, right? Like, hey, what are the things to keep in mind? We have a very great curriculum which is put by our safety team. It's the best in class out there. Then you look at the tools which are available. We are using Lytics as our safety camera dash cam, and we utilize that from a training component. So you've educated the drivers in terms of what does great look like. Now you're using the Lytics cameras. Firstly, like, people don't do things intentionally, right? Like, people are not intentionally trying to speed, or people are not intentionally trying not to do a full stop. So sometimes, just the in moment, like the audible, if you get the audible that, hey, you're driving too fast, or hey, you should take a complete stop. What we're finding is people just self correct that behavior right away in the moment. And you just become more aware and more cognizant of the fact that, you're exhibiting these behaviors. I'm just worried, if I put like a Lytics camera in my personal car, like what are the things I will find? Like, it will be off the charts, I think. Well, it's just a good indicator of people want to correct the behaviors. They want to do the right thing more often than not. So that is where, the real time audible alerts come into play. And if we are seeing like certain repeating behaviors, then our safety, think about on the other side, our training and the safety supervisor staff now can just pull up that video and show it to the drivers. And they look at it once, they look at it twice, and sometimes they don't even have to speak. And the driver understands what the issue was. Like, gone are the days where you're doing just once a quarter testing or an audit of like following a vehicle to see what's going on. It's done. Right now you can use the data, you people can self correct. And if you're seeing repeating behaviors, you can use the videos which then help people self correct. And it also, gamifies stuff a little bit too, right? Like, for drivers, people take big pride, right? Like, it's more than just the money. The drivers who are in this industry, it's more than just the money. They take pride in, not having a risk score, or having a risk score of zero, or not having like any incidents happen, for as long as they have driven. So we are also doing, how can you encourage people and, make it fun a little bit, and celebrate successes on the other side, that these drivers haven't had any events, like the risk score is zero, they're exhibiting great behaviors. Just celebrate it out in the open and make it a little competitive, and celebrate success. So it's such a great cycle. And you think about the amount of time now it's saving for everybody, and the self-realization it's impacting in people is increasing the safety component on the rider aspect throughout the ride hundredfold, right? If not more. So it's just like a big difference. And it's about setting the right expectations, ensuring that the people have the right tools where they can self-correct and self-coach in the moment. And then if like you're seeing repetitive behaviors, how can you utilize the tools to educate them and course correct? So it's been working really well, and it's a great cycle.
Awesome. Well, and obviously you and your team are tasked with overseeing all of this technology deployment and the integration and the data. What are you going to do with the data? I mean, we see so much coming on with data right now. It's just amazing. So certainly keeps you, I'm sure, very busy.
Yeah. Beats the alternative is what I keep saying to myself. And we're truly making a difference in the industry, right? Like, it's just, you think about the pride drivers take in the work, you see them and some of the tools helping them. You talk to the parents. We spend a lot of time with our customers, like some of the self-service aspects of them being able to see where the vehicle is at any point in time, where like automating the billing. You talk about those things and you're truly creating a difference in the industry, truly creating a difference in people's lives. And like that is what keeps me excited, keeps all of my team excited. And we look forward to continuing the opportunity areas and make experiences the best for everybody involved.
Well, it's keeping you busy, but I can tell you're exhilarated by it. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for coming on, talking about technology, AI, the human aspect. Really appreciate it. And I know we're going to be, as we're recording this, we're preparing to go to the ACT Expo out in Anaheim, California, Advanced Clean Transportation Expo. I know I'll see you, so I'll get to meet you in person here in a couple of days. Thanks so much, Gaurav. And definitely, best of luck to you and Beacon Mobility.
Thank you, Ryan, and look forward to seeing you at the expo next week.
A special thanks to Ryan and Gaurav for joining this episode. We really appreciate the folks at ACT Expo as well for hosting us as a media sponsor out in Anaheim this week. Great seeing all our friends and talking about green energy and all the things happening out there in school transportation world. We also want to thank our sponsors, TransFinder and School Radio. Guys, visit stnonline.com for the latest news and analysis on the school transportation industry. And don't forget to register for STN Expo West. Take advantage of our early bird discount. Save 20%. Log on to stnexpo.com/west. All right, nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.